How's the mic? Good? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you, Kelsey, for the invitation to be able to speak here tonight on something I'm really passionate about, which is mindfulness. And I think I'm preaching to folks here who believe in mindfulness, or you wouldn't all be here tonight, right? So, I'll tell you a little bit about myself first. As Kelsey said, I'm a licensed marriage family therapist. I practice here in Visalia. Prior to that, I worked 20 years in community mental health. There's pretty much nothing I haven't seen or worked with. And I'm very passionate about mental health and helping people build a life that they want to live in. And so I work in a treatment modality called DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and that's what I'm trained in. I'm certified in it. And one of the cornerstones of DBT is mindfulness. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey to a mindfulness practice, which actually started with my training in DBT. Prior to that, I'm sure to some extent I was mindful when I worked with my clients. I was mindful, most of the time when I interacted with people and things of that nature. But I brought a heightened awareness because DBT really emphasizes the importance of being mindful as a clinician, really being present with what goes on. And there are so many distractions that happen. It's not untypical for me in a day to see 8 to 10 clients. That's a lot of time, that's a lot of information to be present with. So my mind's gonna drift. All of our minds drift naturally. And being able to bring yourself back to the present moment is really, I've heard it say, is a superpower. And I absolutely agree with that. So my training started in DBT about 10 years ago. At the clinic that I worked at, we decided that we were going to bring a DBT program because we were finding that a number of the clients we were working with weren't getting better. And what we found is we had really good clinicians that were doing really hard work. We had clients that were working really hard to get better, but we didn't have a treatment modality that was what we needed to help them get there. So within that construct, DBT, just a brief thing about DBT. DBT is a treatment that includes individual therapy, skills group, coaching, so in vivo coaching when our clients need it in the moment, and team. So all of the clinicians are on a team. And in the skills component of it, there's 4 modules. The modules are mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, emotion regulation, and distress tolerance. And I can tell you the most important module in the DBT skills training is mindfulness. Because without mindfulness, if you are not present and you are not aware of what's happening, how do you change anything? Okay? And I've often talked to my clients about it. It's kind of like in the computer world that you got a program up and you're working on it, but in the background there's other things going and you're not aware of it and what's happening. So when you're not aware of what's going on, again, how do you change things? And from a DBT perspective, we really kind of have 2 options. We can change things with certain behavioral changes, or we can work towards acceptance of what is. So I'm going to give a couple quick definitions, and then we'll dig into the misconceptions of a mindfulness practice. So again, I'm going to use DBT as my foundation here for my definition. And DBT was developed by Marsha Linehan. DBT, I'm so excited because DBT's been in the news lately. Did anybody see the Oprah interview with Lady Gaga a few weeks ago? And she talked about using water and skills in the present moment. That's DBT. That's what I do. I was like, yes, right? Selena Gomez is another person. So it's super exciting to hear people talk about it and get that word out about what's out there. So Marsha Linehan developed DBT over 30 plus years ago, and she developed it basically now, and she's really been talking about this, to get herself out of hell. And one of the things that she talked about is if she figured a way to get out of hell, she'd come back and bring as many people with her. So if you really want to read an inspiring book, read Marsha Linehan's memoir. It just came out a few weeks ago. So the definition that we use in DBT is it's intentional living with awareness in the present moment. Okay? So what does that mean? that means being present with attention, that I'm going to be here now. I'm going to bring my attention to what I'm doing in this moment with awareness. And I often say, if I had a counter, it would probably blown up by now. How many times I've said, what are you aware of? What's your awareness? Bringing that awareness, that intention to what you're doing is being mindful. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part is without judging or rejecting the moment. So I will tell you, I know this is being recorded, but if we can just keep this all amongst ourselves, therapists can be judgmental. And any time I talk about having judgments, or when I teach skills group and say, who's judgmental, I'd raise my hand first. We're all going to have judgments. It's not that you're going to get to a place where you're not going to have judgments. The goal here is to be aware of your judgment and correct it. Because essentially judgments are shortcuts. They're a way to say something. And I was working with an individual the other night, and she wasn't so upset with what had happened in the event. She was upset with herself. And I was like, can we have a little compassion for you? And she said, I don't know how to do that. I said, well, we can work on that. I've got a skill for that. Very skills-based. So, without judging the moment, so thinking it's good or bad, all or nothing, expectations, I should do this, I shouldn't do that. And then it's without rejecting the moment. So what does rejecting the moment mean? It means pushing it away. It means not allowing it to come and go. Okay? So rejecting the moment, typically for a lot of folks that I work with, we'll talk about experiencing pain at a whole different level, because they're more emotionally sensitive. Okay? And with that, they've learned in order to cope that they have to push emotions away. But all of us do this. We'll push things that we don't want to hear about. I don't want to deal with that. Kind of like avoidance. So we push things away. And the last part is without attachment to the moment. So that means not holding on to it, not letting it go, right? So this could be, I want to be in the future, which I have to, okay, true confession here. Tomorrow, I have a really exciting thing happening, and if you're a golfer, you'll agree. If you're not, you won't care. But I'm going down to Carlsbad to TaylorMade to get fitted for clubs, where all the pros get fitted. And so all day today, I've been like, man, I can't wait till today's over. I can't wait. You know, I've got this talk. I'm super excited about doing the talk, but I just can't wait until it's done and I can be on the road and I'm gonna, not in the moment, right? Not present anymore. When I would supervise students that were working on their practicum, they'd say, you know, it'd be March, April, and they're like, I can't wait till I'm done. May's only a few more days away. And I'd say, whoa, 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 whoa. What about the next 6 weeks? What about the experiences that you're gonna have and you're gonna miss because you're not in the present moment? Okay. It's also about not being in the past, okay? Because sometimes we live in the past, we're stuck in what happened in the past, and we have trouble being able to move forward. Notice I didn't say let go. We have trouble moving forward and bringing ourselves back. And our minds will naturally want to move into the future, into the past, and the goal is to try to notice that with awareness and bring ourselves back to the present moment. Okay? Now, often when I teach skills, I'll have clients will tell me, well, wait a minute, are you saying we're not supposed to ever plan? No, absolutely not. It's what's the task at hand? If the task at hand is planning, you're planning a trip somewhere, then that's the present moment. If you're going to recall and say, hey, remember that first Visalia talks and wine that we went to and so-and-so talked, remember? Now you're in the present moment because you're recalling, right? But if you're in the present moment, I always tell my clients, I was like, if we're having our session right here and we're talking and you're thinking about what you're going to eat for lunch, now you're not in the present moment anymore. So whatever the task is the present moment. So, on to the misconceptions. The first misconception, mindfulness is only practiced through meditation. So actually, mindfulness can be practiced doing any activity. Any activity can be mindful. Your mind might start to wander, and if it drifts off, you're gently bringing it back to the present moment, bringing it back. But I'll have folks that say, I just can't do meditation. Or they have a misconception about what meditation is. And it's too hard, and I can't do it. So it's a kind of a turnoff. And I'm like, you can do any activity. You can take a walk mindfully. You can have a conversation mindfully. You can drink your wine mindfully. How many times throughout the day do we not do something and be present with what we're doing? Right? And I really hope, because I do drive out here and I live in Visalia, that you all drive mindfully. I was sitting at a stop sign the other day, or stoplight, and a person came plowing through a red light, texting. They were not mindful. They're not in the present moment, right? Because the present moment's driving your car. Okay. So I want you to understand that meditation, if you think of mindfulness as a tree, meditation is one of the bigger branches. And meditation really is an activity. So any activity that you're doing, you can bring mindfulness to. Okay? The second misconception, oh, Eric, I do not have time to do this mindfulness stuff. It just takes way too much time. I'm gonna have to sit for like 45 minutes or an hour. Are you kidding me? I've got kids, I've got my work, I've got my commute, I've got to keep my house clean, I've got to go to the grocery store. No, I don't have time. So if you go back, we go back to the first misconception, which talks about that mindfulness is any activity. All those are activities. You can bring mindfulness to any of those activities. Now certainly you can practice, I do a sitting practice where I count my breath. I count in 1, out 1, in 2, out 2, and I get to 10. And once I get to 10, I come back to 1. And sometimes I don't even get to 10. Sometimes I have no idea, what number was I on? Because my mind drifts off, and I start back at 1. Now, are you ready? I practice for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, that's it. You can practice for 2 minutes. I've had clients say, like, 5 minutes is way too much. I don't even have that. Well, how about a minute? How about when you get in and out of the car, or when you go in and out of the building, you stop for just a moment and pause and notice where you are. Which happened today, because another true confession, I was just a teeny bit nervous about doing this tonight. And as I walked out of the house, went to go get in my car, stood in the driveway, and I just stopped for a second before I got in the car. And I noticed what's going on around me. I noticed the sky, I heard birds singing, and then I got in my car and I drove down here. That's being mindful. So it does not take a huge time commitment. It's really actually more important to practice a little bit each day with intention and have that awareness that you're practicing than it is to sit for 30, 40 minutes on a Saturday. I've had a couple clients who've used this term, and I absolutely love it. And the idea is, the term is popcorn thoughts. I have popcorn thoughts. They just pop, 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 pop. Okay? So if you are feeling anxious or nervous and you're doing your mindfulness sit, or you're washing your dishes or taking a shower and you're being mindful while you're doing that, you may notice that you're not more relaxed. Now typically when you slow your breathing down, you're going to get more relaxed. So oftentimes you will, but you may not. You may notice, there's plenty of times I practice mindfulness where I've noticed that my head's just super busy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of different emotions. Or I'm noticing that I have, aches and pains. I'm not getting any younger. Things are hurting that I didn't know I had. So if you think that the goal is to be more relaxed and have a clear mind, that's incorrect. The goal is to be aware of what's going on. And if that's the goal, then you can't fail. Our fourth misconception is that mindfulness is a religious practice. I've had a few people that have told me I can't do this because it doesn't fit in my religion, or I don't have a faith, I'm a non-believer, whatever their thing may be, and so I can't do it. Actually, mindfulness is really more grounded in scientific, when you start to look at it. It's about being awareness in whatever moment you're doing. Certainly in every major religion, contemplative prayer is a part of that. That is a mindfulness practice. So there are many different ways in which you can practice mindfulness, and I would just ask you to look at the facts that it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a specific religious practice, then I can't do it. And our fifth misconception is that mindfulness practice requires a special setup. And this is the idea like, I'm gonna have to go on Amazon or go down to the local store or whatever it is, I'm gonna have to buy a rug, I'm gonna have to get a cushion, I've gotta get the candles, some incense, and I'm not, to be honest, if that works for you, great. But you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to set up a special room in your house for mindfulness. When I actually went to my 4-day retreat with Marcia, led it, I was so fortunate to be able to go and spend time with her and do that. And really it was just being in her presence because it was a silent retreat. I sat in a chair because I was like, there's no way I'm sitting on a cushion for 4 days. These hips ain't gonna do that. I think as Shakira says, hips don't lie. My hips don't lie, right? They are not gonna do that. So you can do mindfulness by standing, sitting, lying down, anything. All you need is your attention and bringing awareness, and you need an anchor, something that's going to bring you to have awareness of where you are in that moment and notice when you aren't there anymore. Sometimes that's a breath, sometimes that's counting. It can be, anything can be your anchor. It can be listening to music. Activity can be your anchor. So to conclude tonight, I want to thank all of you for being here. I'm reminded of a story because mindfulness is a skill. And in order to get better at any skill, we have to practice. We have to practice. Again, even if it's 2 to 3 minutes a day, a minute a day, we've got to practice and practice with consistency. So before I got into the world of therapy, I was a musician and did music composition, and that's actually my undergraduate degree, is in music composition. Don't do anything with it. I love music. I go to concerts. I listen to music, but I don't perform anymore. But back in the day, I was a trombonist, and my trombone instructor used to tell me, he said, Eric, if you stop practicing one day, you will be aware of it. You'll notice. If you stop practicing 3 days, he goes, I notice. So you stop practicing for a week, everybody notices. So I want to encourage you to let's get started in practicing being mindful. Thank you very much.